Hello and welcome to the Under Center podcast. I'm your host, Darren Waller, and this is our first edition of the show in 2022. We took a bit of a break over Christmas, decided to try and enjoy the festivities a little bit. And, to be fair, Jake, with our teams, I don't think we wanted to talk much football anyway.
Yeah, as you can see, I've hidden the Giants jersey. I'm a little bit depressed about it right now, but hopefully we're on the upswing. I don't know, but
I thought you would be wearing the jersey today after the news from last night.
no, I'm gonna have to wait till we at least win a game or 5 games or something before I start successfully or being happy about the Giants again.
Of course, I am joined by my trusty host, Jake Woolhead, as always. And we are looking ahead to Super Wildcard Weekend. And we are delighted to be joined in our first half of the show today by Sam Farley, who's an NFL writer over in England. I was going to say America because we're always so used to saying it. Sorry. Sam, it's great to have you on. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks. I'm excited for the weekend and all the kind of excitement that the playoffs bring.
Yeah. I should ask from the outset as well. Then, who would your team be? Are you sort of looking forward to these games, or are you just already sort of checked out with your team?
Yeah, I've checked out. I'm on holiday on the beach. I'm a Jags fan, so yeah, it's
right.
At least we managed to have quite an important say on the playoffs, even if it wasn't in the way that I would have liked.
Well, I know. Well, look, it was a good way to end what was a turbulent season. I think you and the Raiders were sort of in a race to see who could have the most disastrous year. So definitely, you won that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, not what we wanted, but it was an interesting end to the year. And now Urban Meyer's gone, I think the franchise can kind of rebuild after what is frankly one of the worst tenures in recent years of anybody in any sport.
Yeah, well, very quickly before we get into the games, then, obviously they're one of the teams looking for a new head coach. Is there anybody that you've seen linked with the team that you like the look of?
There's definitely been a few people linked with the team I don't like the look of. Bill O'Brien, in particular, I don't know who his agent is, but they need a pay rise. They're doing great work. But I think two guys I love are Leftwich and Caldwell, because I think they're guys that are just going to get the culture right to start with. Obviously, Leftwich, really promising guy as well, has the history with Jacksonville, and Caldwell, what he did in Detroit. At the time, I remember thinking it's not that great, but when you look back, it was certainly a lot better than they've been since. And I think he's a guy who culture is such a big part of what he does, and culture is something that this team needs so badly. So I think they'd be my two choices, either of those guys.
Good choices for sure. This definitely, and Jake will probably talk about it more maybe later in the week as well about the head coaching changes. It was another Black Monday that did not fail to deliver, full of surprises, and like the Giants, they always have to show up late to the party and do their moves a couple of days later. But let's look ahead though. We're going to look ahead to the games this weekend. We're going to be speaking to Phil Perry from NBC Sports in Boston in the second half of the show, where we'll focus more on the Bills and the Patriots game there. But let's go in order from kickoff. So we'll start with the Saturday games, and the first one, of course, is the Las Vegas Raiders against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Raiders coming off that crazy overtime win against the Chargers to make the playoffs. And it's sort of like this game in particular. It's one thing I've noticed in the build up to the playoffs, guys, that there's a lot of new things to this playoffs, and these two teams encapsulate that. Quarterbacks, like important players, and very new to the playoffs that haven't played playoff games before. Derek Carr was involved with a team in the playoffs, but unfortunately he broke his leg. He never actually got to play the playoff game. Two head coaches are both rookies when it comes to playoff games as well. So we could get a cagey affair in this game. On the other side, we could get two teams that are just going to say, you know what, F this, we're just going to go for it. And Sam, I'll go with you first on this one. Which way would you think you'd be leaning for ahead of this game? Do you think it'd be more of a cagey affair, or do you think this could be, a shootout?
I think this has real shootout potential. I'd go as far as say if there's one game out of all of them that's going to be the highest scoring, I'd probably put my money on this. I think Joe Burrow, he is getting hot at just the right time. The Raiders, I don't know how they do it. I have no idea how they do it, but they somehow manage to just constantly win and perform well when maybe they shouldn't be. And I think they're going. I think they're going to be playing from behind, and I think that often seems to suit the Raiders. They seem to get the bit between their teeth and really kind of fight for it. So I think this could be. I think this is going to be an absolutely brilliant game to start off the weekend.
Yeah, I have to absolutely agree with you. I was just looking up there. You mentioned the massive amounts of points that we think that could be scored. I looked there. The over under is 49 points, which I feel like is quite low. I would have said 54 or something. Like I feel like it's just going to be touchdown. Whoever has the ball offensively last is probably going to win. It's going to come down to it like that. The point spread is -5.5 to the Bengals. So even the bookies thinks the Bengals is going to win. And I have to say I agree with them. I think you're right, Sam. Joe Burrow is just looking better and better every single week he plays this game, and he's got some great connection with T. Higgins, and just the rest of the team just seems to fall right behind him, and he just looks great doing it.
Yeah, and interesting that you both mentioned Burrow as well, and he he's getting hot at the right time, and I think he's played well throughout the whole season now, to be fair. But he hasn't gotten a lot of talk for comeback player of the year, which I think he should be considered a comeback player of the year more than Dak, because Burrow also went out with a serious injury last year too. So I'm not sure why he's not getting as much talk for comeback player of the year as he should.
That's a really good point, actually. I don't think I've heard anybody put his name in that conversation, and ultimately there isn't much different between what happened to him and what happened to Dak, who's obviously kind of very much in the conversation. And yeah, I don't know whether it's just because of how new he was to the league or what, but yeah, that is quite a strange anomaly.
Yeah, it's something I hadn't thought about either, because as you said, you hear Dak all the time as like comeback player of the year, and he's probably the favorite. I haven't looked, but Joe Burrow arguably has less time to do it on kind of a worse team, and like you see kind of all these different arguments, but still Joe Burrow's overcome it, and well, so has Dak, to be fair, but it just seemed like a bit of a stretch for Joe Burrow to get that far, and he has made it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because Joe Burrow took this team to the playoffs, a Bengals team that probably no one expected to get to the playoffs, with a head coach who was under pressure at the start of the year. Where you look at Dak, and Dak is on a Cowboys team, which you do expect to go to the playoffs. I know we like to give, shit to the NFC East, calling it one of the worst divisions, but
it's the best division in all of football.
It's definitely probably the most entertaining, it's most talked about, maybe not for the good reasons, all right? But it was just something when I was doing research for this that I thought, why isn't he getting enough talk for this? On the Raiders side of things, though, interim coach Rick Bisaccia has done a really, really good job. He steadied the ship after the John Gruden emails, and obviously subsequent resignation came out. If he was to win this game, do you think that is the job for him now? Or do you think he should already deserve the job after just making it to the playoffs with the Raiders? I'll start with you, Jake, on this one.
The way I think about it is, when you get named an interim coach, you really are just an interim coach. I don't know when the last time an interim coach took over as the head coach full time, but you don't see it often. And I just feel like unless he wins the Super Bowl, he probably is going to get replaced by somebody. But on the other side of it, the Raiders are starting on a back foot, because by the time they get to be interviewing head coach candidates, if that's what they want to do, they're going to be left with whoever hasn't hired one at that stage.
I think it's something they really need to consider, actually, because he has at least steadied the ship, if not potentially improved it, you could say. He's just done so well there, and I mean, it seems like every week there's something new going wrong in Las Vegas, and the way they've reached the playoffs is, in my mind, and I don't think they're necessarily even the best team, kind of talent wise. I think it's arguably the most impressive of all of the performances by any team to get to the playoffs. Whether or not they'll go very far, I think that's definitely up for grabs. But he has to be in the conversation for this job, and I'd say he probably has done enough now that the players seem to be buying into what he's saying. He understands and knows the culture of the team, and I think he probably does deserve a shot at it.
Yeah. I want to hear who you think the key players are going to be heading into this game. For me now, I was looking at Darren Waller in this. He missed 5 games with an ankle issue. He came back there in the Raiders game at the weekend. He didn't register a catch. Looking at actually his stats for this year, he had a really bright opening to the season, but he sort of tailed off a bit. Maybe that ankle issue was sort of bugging him a little bit before he started missing games. But, he is going to sort of be integral to this Raiders team if they want to beat the Bengals and to move on in the playoffs. But Sam, is there any other players you're looking out for this?
Yeah, I think it's obvious that the quarterbacks are obviously kind of key, and that receiving core of the Bengals is absolutely phenomenal. But for me, I think Yannick Ngakoue of the Raiders is going to be key, because in my eyes, this is Joe Burrow's game to kind of really show out or ultimately lose. And I don't overly think that offensive line in front of him is brilliant. And if Yannick Ngakoue can kind of have a real day on the edge and cause a lot of problems, I think he could really, really damage Cincinnati. I think he's got, I'm having a look now, 10 sacks on the season, by far and away clear of everybody on the Raiders. And I think he's the danger man. If he doesn't perform well, I don't think they really stand a chance of winning this game.
Yeah, for me, I think I like Joe Mixon. I think if Joe Mixon has a big game, it helps Joe Burrow and gets that passing game open up for like T. Higgins and the rest of them. And we know they can throw the ball. So if they can run the ball very effectively, I'd like to see that. And then they can run, hopefully rack up a good amount of rushing yards, and then have all the linebackers move in, get stopped the run, and then you open up the back, and then it really becomes an explosive day for Joe Burrow.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And especially in the first playoff game where there will be nerves there, you definitely want your running game to help ease the pressure on you a little bit, for sure, Jake. And Sam, with saying Ngakoue is interesting because all the headlines at the moment obviously go to Max Crosby, and I think he's only registered 6 sacks this year, but the amount of pressures that he gets on, so it's allowing Ngakoue to sort of have those one-on-one matchups to be his lineman and to sort of get the sacks in there, while obviously all the attention is on Crosby.
Yeah, I think Crosby is probably the better of the two, but he's the one who's going to be kind of manhandled around the most and double teams. And I think ultimately the two of them have a really nice connection either side of that defensive line. And realistically, I think this Raiders defense is one that we've not talked about as being brilliant all season. And statistically, they aren't in that kind of upper echelon, but they're consistently really performing at probably slightly above their talent levels, I'd say, which I think is potentially a really good coaching job there. But they're sneakily good, and I think they could actually cause quite a lot of problems for the Bengals.
And finally, predictions for this one. Who do you think is going to move on?
For me, Bengals. I'm quite confident. I think they'll cover the spread as well.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Bengals as well on this one, because they just look a lot stronger. Now, the Raiders have overcome a lot this season, so I wouldn't be surprised if they keep it close, but I do think the Bengals cover the spread as well.
Yeah. I'm not too confident on them covering the spread. I think there might be a field goal in it, but I think I agree with both of you. I think it will be the Bengals to sort of move on, and I think the home advantage is going to be big for them in this one as well. Get that Cincinnati crowd behind them. Let's move on then to Sunday's games, and we'll start with the 6 p.m. game. Of course, that is the Philadelphia Eagles, traveling to Tampa Bay, take on the defending champion Buccaneers. And for me, this is my game to watch out for this weekend, where I think there's the biggest potential of an upset. The Eagles have spent the whole season surprising everyone. I know Jake is laughing his head off at this right now because it's the Eagles, but no one expects them to even make it to the playoffs to win as many games as they have. And Jalen Hurts, I think, has proven to the Eagles that he is going to be the guy going forward. That Eagles defense, and especially coinciding with the Buccaneers offensive injuries that they're going on, well, I think is also an interesting matchup to look out for this year too. The Bucs, they get Shaq Barrett back this week, but Cyril Grayson, their sort of backup wide receiver, is questionable. Richard Sherman now is on IR. He's gone for the rest of the season. Obviously, the Antonio Brown debacle that led to him leaving, and so you're looking at sort of maybe just Gronk and Mike Evans as the main receivers. Of course, Cameron Brate is a good red zone target as well. But Jake, I'll start with you on this one. What is your thoughts ahead of this game?
Well, you know how much I hate the Eagles. It's almost much I hate every other NFC East team, bar the Giants. I do understand where you're coming from. The Eagles don't make it easy for you to win against them, but I just don't think they have what it takes to beat Tom Brady, the Buccaneers. They have, I think, three good players coming back. Did I not see Leonard Fournette coming back as well today?
Yes.
So that just makes that team a little bit stronger. And, you know, Tom Brady really likes Leonard Fournette when he's on the field. He plays a little bit better. He seems to be a bit more sure-handed than Rojo. So, I like the Bucs in this one. I think they could just take it. An 8.5 point favorite. The Bucs are at the minute. So I feel like they get that game handy enough.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, because I'm kind of torn. I think the spread's 8.5, isn't it? And I think the Bucs either clear that by some margin, like it's a 15-20 point win, like an absolute thrashing, or the Eagles win. I don't think there's a middle ground. Which is there's something about Jalen Hurts that there's so much when you watch him that isn't right. Like his sort of arm isn't brilliant. His mechanics don't look particularly sound. Yet he just has this sort of knack of, I don't know, leading his team somewhere, which is, I think he's a lot better than he probably. I don't even know what I'm saying. Like he's better than he is almost, but he's a guy who I think I saw someone on Twitter post that his kind of stats through his first 16 games are kind of quite similar to Lamar's were in his first 16 games. And I really do think there's something to kind of build on with him. And I'd like to see them give him at least another year. And I think if he performs well and if he kind of gets to use his feet a little bit and has a bit of confidence in his arm, I think they could be a bit of an upset there. But ultimately they're playing Tom Brady at home. I mean, it's hard to look beyond the Bucs, but I think there is a little off chance that we could see something spicy on Sunday.
The other thing I was thinking there, Jalen Hurts, a big part of his game is being mobile, and he's just coming off of that ankle injury. I wonder how much that kind of affects him or limits his running around ability.
Yeah, well, the Eagles given most of their first teamers a bye week last week, I think would have helped heal up any sort of, niggling injuries they would have carried into this game.
Yeah, maybe. I suppose I think a lot of people love Jalen Hurts because if you have him in fantasy, he's the best garbage time quarterback that there has been all season.
It's all about the points there, Jake. All about the points for sure. But then you mentioned we mentioned briefly about Tom Brady, and Aaron Rodgers is getting all the MVP talk. Should we be talking more about Tom Brady? Another year over 5,000 yards, 43 touchdowns thrown as well, leads the league in that. I believe, and Jake, we had a show a couple of months ago, maybe at this stage, where we talked about who should be your, mid-season MVP, and I said Tom Brady. I'm still sticking with that. He still should be MVP.
Yeah, I can see why, but the amount that Aaron Rodgers has improved over the season, so since the second half, has just really exploded, and he just seems to have gotten back into a groove. And when you get hot at the end of the season, that really puts you in the front runner for that MVP race.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Aaron Rodgers fan, and that's long before this season. There's something about him that really grates on me. I think it's that sort of Californian boy kind of attitude, but he's undoubtedly the best quarterback in the league right now in my mind. And yeah, if there was somebody I'd be throwing up as a name instead of Rodgers, it wouldn't be Brady. It'd be a receiver that I'm sure we're going to talk about in a little while, Cooper Kupp. But yeah, I think he's in the conversation, but I don't think he can really kind of compare with Rodgers this year, who's with sort of far weaker tools has been otherworldly.
Yeah, for sure. And so the Eagles now are sort of sitting pretty as well in the playoffs. They've got their quarterback that they want, even though, people think that shouldn't work. They send Carson Wentz to the Colts and they get a first round pick back for him, and the Colts don't even make the playoffs. I think it's the best case scenario the Eagles could have hoped for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's just some trade, some finessing by the Eagles organization to get rid of a quarterback who had one really good season, got injured, and then after that never really came back to form. And then they got rid of him with the possibility of getting a second, and now it's just transformed into a first, and it's a first where the team doesn't make the playoffs. So that's just crazy. That is some finessing by the GM. He deserves a promotion for that or some sort of bonus.
Yeah, it's incredible. Seeing, I don't know if you saw at the national championship game, they had RG3 and Andrew Luck kind of on camera together, and seeing Andrew Luck there and just thinking like, if only he'd have stayed healthy with that Colts team, they would be just walking their way to a Super Bowl win here, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And the rumors are they might be moving off from Wentz as well in the off season. Frank Reich is not exactly cementing Wentz as a starter next year, which is also very interesting too. But so I'm guessing you guys both going to go with the Bucks on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm taking the Bucks for a handy win.
Yep, I second that.
Okay. I'd like to. I think maybe Eagles. I want to say Eagles. I think they might be a surprise, but you know, you kind of do have to go with Bucks because they are the champions and they should really move on from this game, even if the Eagles do give them a bit of trouble. They may not cover the spread. I'm not liking the spread on a lot of games this week. I think it's too big. So I think if you want to get some, if you want to get it that way, I think you might be in with a chance to win a bit of money. But let's move on to the 9:00 game, and that is, of course, the 49ers against the Cowboys in A&T Stadium, Jerry World. Jake, another NFC.
Two NFC East teams I have to watch this weekend, and not one of them is the Giants. Absolutely disgusting.
This is probably the most, I'd say, the most even matchup I'd like to say of all the weekend's games. Well, you could argue maybe the Rams and the Cardinals as well, but you know, at the 49ers, of course, they showed real fight to come back from 17-0 down against the Rams on Sunday, to win that game in overtime, to make the playoffs. You know, of course, giving Sean McVay his first loss as a coach when he's leading at halftime. So that's something for them to put on the trophy mantle if they don't win the Super Bowl this year, at least. Zeke has struggled a little bit this year as well. Again, I think maybe we can sort of close the book on Zeke being an elite running back. I think that's done now. I think he is just a part of the team. He's not the team anymore. But the interesting side in the 49ers, the emergence of Juwan Jennings in the last couple of weeks to be another outlet for Jimmy and sometimes Debo as well, because he does everything at this stage, as a receiver, is going to cause this Cowboy secondary another few problems. And I will see. And of course, Debo Samuel, probably the MVP for the second half of this season. He's definitely been fantastic for the 49ers and probably elevate himself all the way up to a first-round pick in next year fantasy drafts for a lot of players too. But Sam, I'll start with you on this one. What are you looking for in this game?
Do you know what? I'm just looking for a sign of what's going to happen because, like you said, this is the closest game. I think the bookies have it the closest, and it's one I've flip-flopped on it all week pretty much. Every day I think it's somebody different. I have a conversation with somebody and I change my view. And I think we're going to have to see both defenses at their top. I think the Cowboys defense obviously this year is hugely improved. I think second in defensive DVOA, which is an absolute leap on from last year when they were awful. Obviously, you've got Parsons, almost certainly defensive rookie of the year. They are a really good defense, and they're going to have to kind of take everything that Kyle Shanahan's going to throw at them. And there's going to be some, he's saved some stuff up in that playbook. We're going to see some very fun stuff, very exciting stuff, I'm sure. And I think they're just going to have to be so tough, tight, and resolute on their defense. But it's all about the defense, I think, it's strange considering both teams have pretty explosive offenses. But I think the defense are ultimately going to be the thing that define this game.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you as well because it is very close. I've been flip-flopping as well. I don't want to pick the Cowboys, but sometimes you think you kind of have to because how good do they look sometimes? Then they're also kind of infuriating to watch as well. But then also, I'm not a fan of Jimmy Garoppolo. I've never have been a huge fan of him, but they do have Kyle Shanahan, they do have Debo, so it's going to make life very difficult for the Cowboys defense. And I think when you have players like Micah Parsons and stuff like that, you're going to have to try scheme around them. You have to scheme around the best guy on the defense. And I think Kyle could probably scheme around Micah Parsons. There's probably going to be a lot of screens, a lot of jet motions with Debo in the backfield and stuff like that. So it's definitely a hard one to pick. Another one I can see, I'm probably going to flip-flop it until Saturday evening, I'd say, until Dara forces a pick out me for our pick competition. So I don't know. This is a tough one to pick. I just seen a stat. I Googled it there before the show. Dallas are 6-0, obviously, against the NFC East, but that's not really a great achievement. But they're 6-5 against everybody, not NFC East. So that the NFC East is terrible. So that doesn't really help their justification.
Yeah, I think one player that's going to be vitally important to this game is Trent Williams. He missed last week for against the Rams, and they obviously got through the game and won to make it to the playoffs. But I think in this game, especially with DeMarcus Lawrence as well as Micah Parsons and Randy Gregory too, that I think Trent Williams is going to be so important that to look after that left side of that line.
Yeah, definitely a strong defensive front from the Cowboys there. It's going to give a lot of trouble if they don't have Trent Williams coming into the game.
What do you guys make of Trayvon Diggs? Because
the Cowboys cornerback.
Yes, because
everybody gives him all this. He's got all the interceptions, but then you look at the rest of the stats behind him, and he's given up the most amount of yards to wide receivers in the league. So, what do you want? Do you want all the interceptions? Do you want all the yards given up?
Yeah,
just because he's a Cowboy, he's overblown.
It's clear he's clearly a good player. Like, you don't get that many interceptions if you're not. I mean, you don't play in the NFL if you're not either. But there is a lot of hyperbole around him when some of the kind of, like you mentioned, the supporting argument, so to speak, doesn't really stack up with putting him at the very kind of elite end of the cornerback. So for me, I don't think he's particularly elite. I think he's just having an incredible purple patch, but that's not going to matter to the Cowboys if they win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's true.
That is, you are definitely right for sure. No, that's what, and Jake, that's the reason why I brought it up for the stats that you brought up too. And you know, he will catch an interception, but then the next one he could be burned for about a 40-yard gain, so it's kind of like, you have to take both sides of that if you are going to have him on the team. And look, 11 picks is still 11 picks, so that's still something to look for, to be happy about. The Steelers and the Chiefs. Now, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because, we saw the preview of this game in week 16, 36 points to 10. Big Ben's retirement party goes on to Arrowhead for another week. The Steelers should not have made it to the playoffs. I don't know how they are in the playoffs currently. I tweeted out that, like, them being in the playoffs makes the playoffs less watchable. Because obviously they took it away from Justin Herbert and the Chargers, and that's their own fault for not making it. But we can't see anything else but a Chiefs win here, right?
No, I mean, you have to absolutely just think Chiefs or something has gone severely wrong for the Chiefs. I don't see how Ben Roethlisberger survives this game and many more. I don't know if his arm will let him go to the Super Bowl, even he's usually finished by this in the past few years.
There's not a cat and hell's chance, is there? Let's be honest. I think 13 points the spread. I think that's quite low. The Steelers are, I've got a bit of a soft spot for them, but they are not a good football team. They're the worst team by some margin, I'd say, in the playoffs. And Mike Tomlin has done just an absolutely unbelievable job with this team, but not even Mike Tomlin can get a win here. It's not happening. Like you say, it's not happening. We all know it's not happening.
Well, it's just to play home. Just to play devil's advocate a little bit, like, this season has been absolutely crazy already. What's one more crazy result involving, like, the Steelers against this Chiefs side? But I don't think it's going to happen. But I guess we got to fill a couple of minutes of the show by saying it could happen, right?
Do you think they cover 13 points though?
No.
The Chiefs or the
Yeah.
Steelers?
No,
Chiefs
the
cover.
Chiefs definitely cover, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's all right.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying the Steelers are coming up here.
No way. No way. Like, the thing is, if they can score more than the 10 points that they did in week 16, I'll be surprised. And he only scored that because they got a garbage time touchdown from Deontay Johnson. When I think it was just they actually wanted to take Big Ben out of that game because obviously they were getting beaten so badly, but Ben just wanted to play and get a touchdown for Johnson, which he did in the end. And it's look, I don't know. It's just it's such a mismatch. If there was a draw in that game last week, this would have been the Raiders facing the Chiefs, and we probably would have been saying the same thing though, because the Raiders have lost by like 30-40 points in both of their games this year against the Chiefs. So, I think it's going to be a Chiefs win. We'll move on anyway. We'll move on to the Monday Night Football, and this is probably the game of the week. It's an NFC West matchup. The Arizona Cardinals traveling to LA to take on the Rams. 1-1 so far this year. Interestingly, the Cardinals won 37 points to 20 in SoFi in week 4 as part of their 7-game winning run. But the Cardinals have been sort of hard to figure out this year. Like I said, they started the season with 7-0, but only won 4 of the next 10 after that. And in those 6 losses, they included the Panthers, the Lions, the Colts, and the Seahawks in that time. But also, one of their 4 wins was traveling to Dallas to beat the Cowboys. So I don't know which way to sort of, take this Cardinals team. And Sam, I'll start with you on this one. Like, it's very reminiscent of their season last year, where they started hot and then they just, tired out and they just didn't make the playoffs. This time they have made the playoffs. So it's going to see if they can get that sort of, cohesion back to see if they can get through this game.
Yeah, and like you say, it is a really tough one to call. And I've sort of flip-flopped a bit on this. I said before the season, actually I said after the Matt Stafford trade, it was going to be the Rams Super Bowl. And I kind of stuck with that before the season, and as the season's gone on, I'm still sticking with it because I feel like I have to. But inside, I am starting to lose a bit of confidence. But ultimately, I worry about who isn't there for the Cardinals more than who is. And I think one of the biggest names missing, well, he's definitely a big name, but a guy who did so much in I think just 7 games was JJ Watt. He really kind of looked like he just became a huge part of that defense, became part of their identity in no time at all. And I don't think they've really been quite as good, certainly not defensively, since he was on the sidelines. I think against this Rams offense, you need everybody there, everybody able to step up on defense. And you just know Sean McVay's been kind of planning for this for a little while. He's probably got a little book somewhere. He's been making little notes. not that he even needs to write them down, actually. He's got that sort of photographic memory. But I think we're going to see something quite special, but I don't know who it's going to be. But yes, it's going to be a special game.
This is probably the best game in this weekend, I'd say. It's I'd like it a lot better. I'd be a lot more comfortable if I wanted to pick the Cardinals if Hopkins was playing, but I don't think he is, as far as I'm aware. So this just really hurts the Cardinals. And
No, I was just going to say, just watching their game on watching the game against the Seahawks on Sunday, the camera did pan to Hopkins a couple of times, and he's still on a set of crutches. So I don't think he's going to be playing. Now, there's a chance that JJ could be though. They were talking during the game that he is hoping to practice this week, so there is a chance he could play.
It's a tough game. It looks like. Yeah, I'm just Googling here. It looks like JJ Watt can return. There's still no word on him, but Hopkins is not available at all. So even if JJ does make the game, it's 4 points to the Rams, and without Hopkins, I think that should be more to the Rams, I say, or against the Rams rather.
Yeah, I mean, I would back the Rams. I think they've got the better coach, which I think is so key when you kind of get to these big games. And ultimately, they just have this. I know they have lost a few games and they have been stopped, but that offense, when it's on a roll, is unstoppable. you know exactly who Stafford's going to pass the ball to, but you don't really see anyone being able to stop it. And I think if they get that ground game going as well, I think Sony Michel has been really fantastic since he sort of overtook Darrell Henderson as being the starter there. I don't really think we're going to see much of Cam Akers despite him being on the sidelines and so on. But yeah, I think the Rams could really be something this year, but we're going to need to see. They've almost been found out, I'd say, the last sort of 4 to 6 weeks. And I think they need to show in this game that there is maybe something slightly more to that offense, or even if they don't lose this one, they might lose the next. But I think it is time really for McVay to show what this offense is all about.
I think there is a streak for McVay over Kingsbury. I don't know what it is at the minute, but the amount of games that McVay has won over Kingsbury is like quite a bit. So I don't know if that helps your opinion.
Yeah, well, there is a bit of a carousel now when it comes to NFC West teams. So it's the Rams always beat the Seahawks. The Seahawks always beat the 49ers, and the 49ers always beat the Rams. So, and then the Cardinals are sort of, they beat everyone sometimes, and then they lose to everyone sometimes. There's no sort of correlation there with that. But it's interesting that we've mentioned Matt Stafford a couple of times, and this is the reason why he was brought in, because the Rams are wanting to obviously get that Super Bowl, and he has proven to be that massive step up as compared to Jared Goff. But will the move only be deemed success if Matt Stafford takes them to the Super Bowl?
I think it's pretty successful now with the way Matt Stafford is. He's obviously made McVay's life a lot easier. And I don't think McVay really liked Goff. So I'd say it's a success as it is now, considering what they got for trading Goff, or had to pay to trade Goff away. I still think it works out well for them. They never really used their first round picks. They didn't really care, and they're quite successful without them.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think the reality is that it is a success, but whether or not it's going to be viewed as a success by a lot of people is another question. I do think the way they've kind of leveraged so much of their draft, just in signing so many kind of established vets, just giving up picks, they have very little left coming up in future. And I think the way they've kind of pushed all the chips in, if it doesn't pay off, I think they will look a bit stupid and get some criticism, even if it has ultimately improved the team.
Yeah, but it is like one of them. It's a plaster fix. It's like, I feel like I'm close, and then you go get Jalen Ramsey, then you feel like you're close, and you get Odell Beckham, and you feel like you're close, you get Matt Stafford. At a certain point, there's only so much future you can mortgage against trying to get a Super Bowl. So, I mean, how long do they have in this window before they have to sign all these big contracts and trade away players and all this sort of stuff?
Well, what they do is they just get rid of some players or lose some players to injury and bring back retired guys who've been out of the league for 2 years to play safety for them. That's how it works. That's how it works with the Rams. That's how they can save the money, just get these old guys off the street, But I want to talk a little bit about Cooper Kupp. He has been the man this year for the Rams. In a just world, he would be probably maybe top of that MVP list, like you mentioned a little earlier, Sam. Just short of 2,000 yards, 16 touchdowns. He's been phenomenal this year, and like you were mentioning, he is the guy that will take the Rams as far as they can go, especially if Matt Stafford can get the ball to them.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp is just. He's one of the guys I most enjoy watching in the NFL. He's not as explosive as some other guys. He doesn't have these incredible highlight plays, amazing catches, but he's just so consistent. He doesn't drop the ball hardly ever. He always manages just to get a bit of separation, find some space. And, he's growing this incredible little playoff beard that he's got going on there that he's got towards the end of the season. I just think he's a phenomenal player. And he kind of had that almost telekinetic connection with Jared Goff, and sort of better quarterbacks come in, and it's gone up again, which I think is the sign of a really good player. I think he's the sort of guy that I can imagine in a parallel universe would be Tom Brady's favorite receiver. He's the sort of guy, he'll go in any team in this league and be absolutely incredible. And I think he absolutely deserves the MVP. I think there's a good chance he's not going to get it because we know about the bias involved in that, but he's got an incredible performances this year, and I think he deserves that MVP. I want to see him get a ring. I'm all in on Cooper Kupp ultimately.
Yeah, no, I like Cooper Kupp as well. He seems like a real intelligent football player, which I like to see, and he's obviously extremely athletic and one of the most consistent third down receivers in the league as it stands at the minute. But it's the award for MVP just doesn't often or very rarely go to a non-quarterback or maybe an edge rusher or something like that. But it should separate. If you separate out quarterback MVP and everything else, he probably gets the award this year.
For sure. And who are we going with on this game?
I'll probably take the Rams. I think I'll take the Rams, but yeah, I think I'll probably take the Rams anyway.
Yeah, no, I've been saying the Rams all year. I can't really change now. So Rams.
Yeah, I'd say Rams. If Hopkins was playing up against Ramsey, I think it could be a little different. But with Ramsey just having to cover, I think AJ Green, I think he'll be all right with that. So I think he'll move around because he might get a little bored. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Rams. But listen, Sam, it's been great having you on to preview the games. I really appreciate it. If anyone's in.
Yeah, so you find me on Twitter at Farley Writes. I write kind of match reports and covers and previews, and I also post a lot of stuff on Twitter, so follow me there. But yeah, just want to say, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, and enjoy the rest of the season.
You too, man. Cheers.
No, it's been great having you on, Sam, and we'd love to have you on again, maybe closer to the Super Bowl or later in the playoffs for sure, to preview any upcoming games.
That'd be fantastic. Awesome.
Excellent stuff. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be speaking to Phil Perry of NBC Sports in Boston. And you welcome back to the second part of the Under Center podcast. We are looking ahead to Wild Card Weekend, and we're going to focus on the Buffalo Bills hosting the New England Patriots in the second game on Saturday night. We are delighted to be joined by friend of the show, Phil Perry from NBC Sports in Boston. Phil, it's so great to speak to you. Happy New Year. Is it still okay to say Happy New Year at this stage? I'm not too sure because we're 2-3 weeks into July at this stage. I think it's maybe we've gone past the point of saying.
I think we're safe. I think we're safe. You know, this is my first time talking to you guys in 2022, so my year is now happier that you guys are in it. It's not as new as it was 2 weeks ago, but it's new enough. Let's go with that.
I'm blushing, Phil. I think I'm blushing.
That's the fever, Jake.
Oh yeah, it could be the fever.
But Phil, we'll get straight into it here with looking ahead to the game, and we were speaking in the first part of the show, and I was mentioning that in the playoffs, the games this weekend, there's a lot of, you could say, new in this, and what I mean by new is there's a lot of like new QB and head coach partnerships that haven't been to the playoffs before. You look at the Bengals with Burrow and Taylor, you've got the Raiders with Carr and Bisaccia, you've got the Eagles with Hurts and Sirianni, the Cardinals, interesting enough, as well, with Kingsbury and Murray, and then you've got the rookie QB with the most experienced head coach when it comes to playoff times that has left this year in Bill Belichick and Mac Jones. And with that, does this does this make the Patriots a sort of extra dangerous side that they have such an experienced coach that's been here before, has done it before, and knows exactly how these games go?
Well, there's no doubt it's a benefit to the Patriots to have Bill Belichick on their sideline and for him to understand what it takes to win in these games. And it's not just Bill Belichick, although he is the most critical piece. It's guys like David Andrews and Dante Hightower and Devin McCourty and Shaq Mason and all of these players who have gone through entire Super Bowl runs, who understand the focus, the preparation, the intensity of the games themselves, but what you need to get to where you eventually want to be. No doubt about it. That is a benefit. The thing that I would say with the Patriots is going to be an inhibiting factor, though, is their overall talent. Number one, I think you could look at their combination of offensive weapons and say, man, across the teams that are still left, right? I wouldn't say they're at the very bottom, but I would say they're near the bottom of the list. And they're vastly improved from where they were last year, but it is what it is. They just do not have explosive, dynamic, playmaking athletes on that side of the ball. And the rookie quarterback has played like a rookie over the course of the last month of the season. I remember talking to you guys right before that Patriots-Falcons game, and they were in the middle of what eventually ended up being a 7-game winning streak. And by the time we were through with that thing, we felt like Mac Jones, and it wasn't just here in Boston, it wasn't just locally, but Mac Jones was looking like the offensive rookie of the year. The Patriots were looking like one of the toughest teams in football because they could run it on anybody. They just stomped on Buffalo's faces in Buffalo. They threw it 3 times and still beat them. They looked like they were going to be back atop the division for the next however many years. And the Bills had basically a 1-year run there. So congratulations, hashtag Bills Mafia. But that's how we were talking about it up here. And really since then, the Patriots and specifically Mac Jones have kind of come undone. We're just seeing him make mistakes that we hadn't seen him make all year. And I would say 3 of the last 4 games, the 3 of the last 4 that they've lost, you could make the argument that they have been Mac Jones's 3 worst games. So not exactly how you want to be entering into the playoffs, whether you have Bill Belichick on your side or not.
Yeah, and looking then, especially last week with the game against the Dolphins, and it seems to be the sort of kryptonite there a little bit now with the Dolphins in the last couple of years. We've seen that the RPO sort of action that the Dolphins run. It's not maybe the strong point of the Bills, but is there anything that maybe Sean McDermott is going to be looking at that game last week and probably pinpointing as a way to sort of get at the Patriots?
No doubt about it, because they will run some of that RPO stuff. And so the Patriots are going to have that figured out. I thought for sure they would have it figured out going into Miami because it's essentially their entire offense, And so the fact that on their first drive, they ran several of those types of plays and they were picking up 9, 10, 11 yards every time they ran it, that to me was an issue. They were missing 2 of their best second-level defenders in Dante Hightower and Kyle Duggar in that game. And it looked like today out at practice that Duggar was not there. We haven't gotten the official injury report yet, but Duggar's dealing with a hand injury. If he can't go in this game against Buffalo, it's a factor again for the second straight week because, again, you're facing an athletic quarterback, which Tua Tagovailoa is not nearly the athlete Josh Allen is, but he was athletic enough to really hurt the Patriots in some critical moments with scrambles. And so that's one thing that I could see the Bills tapping into, and Brian Daboll in particular. And he's been more willing to do this late in the year, which is use Josh Allen as a runner, whether it's in the design game or just encouraging him to say, hey, if your first read's not there and there's an open lane, it's the end of the season. There's, no holds barred at this point in time. Maybe earlier in the year, you'd want to protect Josh Allen and say, hey, we don't need you rushing 8, 9, 10 times a game because we need you. We need you to be healthy. And that's still true. But now it's the postseason. He's your best weapon on the ground. They don't really have much of a running game without him, even though they've tried to run it more. And again, later in the year, they've been more willing. It's appeared as though they've been more willing to use him as part of the run game. So that's something I certainly think they would do because Tua hurt them with his legs the other day. And to me, it was because the Patriots were so undisciplined in their pass rush. That's really one thing that they're focused on this week. And from some of the players we've had a chance to talk to already, we're hearing it over and over and over again. You can't let Josh Allen break the pocket. You can't let Josh Allen hurt you with his legs. We know he's a dynamite thrower of the football, and we'll see what it looks like when the temperatures are where they're going to be in Buffalo on Saturday. But they know, number one, they have to stop his legs, because if they can't do that, they're not going to have a shot.
Phil, do you think that the weather is going to play a big part in the game? Because by all accounts, it's going to be sub-zero. It's going to be absolutely frozen. The Patriots are playing at outdoor, training outdoor now, aren't they, just to kind of prepare for the game? And as you mentioned, Josh Allen's probably going to have a chance opportunity to run the ball a lot more, because obviously if it's a horrible weather, you're going to want to run the ball and not throw it as much.
Yeah, I mean, that first meeting in Buffalo, I thought was the extreme example of just how significantly the conditions can impact how these teams perform. One team is built for this time of year. The Patriots should be built for this time of year. They're built around their running game. They're built around taking care of the football, playing good defense. For them to succeed, that's what they need to do. And to face 0-degree temperatures, which is what it looks like they're going to see. Is that negative 18 Celsius? Did I see that somewhere? I have no idea how to make that conversion there, guys, but it sounds bad, whatever it is. And I'm going to be out there just an absolute popsicle, I'm sure, on the sidelines trying to do our pre and post game television shows. But, you know, the cold is going to impact it. It was severe when they were in Buffalo, 50-mile-an-hour winds. They're not going to see that again. But my buddy Matthew Fairburn from The Athletic, he had some interesting numbers in terms of Josh Allen's performance in the cold. So when the temperatures are 31 degrees or colder, Allen is 3-2 in terms of his record. He's only completed 50.3% of his passes for 166 yards per game, 6 touchdowns, 7 picks. So he's not the same guy generally when it's really, really cold that way. And it's going to be much colder than 31 degrees. It's going to be 0, it looks like. So to me, that's favoring the Patriots coming into this one, because we know they're fine if they don't have to throw it at all. And the Bills obviously are built around that unbelievable quarterback that they have.
Yeah, the Bills rushing game is probably the most infuriating rushing game in all of the league to watch, because it just is so unsuccessful all the time unless Josh Allen gets the ball out.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned there about Allen's stats in the cold, because he is one player that you do sort of notice, one quarterback that insists in going gloveless and no long sleeve when he's playing. It's always the short sleeve, and that could play a factor into it. We've seen like even like the greats like Brady do alter their sort of, you know, they'll wear gloves if they need to, if it's cold, just to make sure that they keep their hands warm, and that they don't lose control of the ball, which can result in picks.
Yeah, Brady used to go full scuba suit underneath his jersey. I mean, that thing was thick and it was full body, and it worked for him. And so, you know, Mac Jones has been interesting because we've been peppering him with questions about how he's going to handle the cold. Now, obviously, again, the reason I'd say it favors the Patriots is because they don't need Mac Jones to throw 50 times and complete, 300 yards worth of passes for them to be able to win a football game. He just has to not throw picks, essentially. But he's a guy who really has not performed in the conditions from what we've seen thus far well at all. And he hasn't even had that many opportunities to throw in the cold. Again, that game in Buffalo, he threw it 3 times. And then when Buffalo was here and when Jacksonville was here late in the season, those were really mild New England days. Those were not dead of winter New England days here at Gillette Stadium. So he's going to have one of those dead of winter games, and he's from Jacksonville, Florida. He played his college football in the SEC for Alabama, where he didn't see anything close to what he's going to see in Buffalo. So if it becomes a passing game, I really don't like the Patriots' chances. They have to make this sort of an old-fashioned slop fest, ground and pound kind of game, and they have to hope, it's the same thing on the other side. Because if you let Josh Allen sit back there and throw, which they did the first time around, it was almost like they put it in his hands. Hey, we don't want to get beat by your legs. He still ran for 60 some odd yards, so they didn't do a great job in that regard either. But we don't want to get beat by your legs, so we won't even really pass rush. What they did was they tried sort of this mush rush where they were just trying to keep Josh Allen in front of them. They weren't trying to beat their blockers and get up the field because they felt like that would open up lanes for Josh Allen to exploit on the ground. Well, that didn't work because he had all kinds of time. He had 4 or 5 seconds at times behind the line of scrimmage. And if they did get close, all you had to do was sidestep them or get a little bit of a backward sort of movement, in the pocket, and he could loft it over defenders, and he was really accurate that day. I don't know if that accuracy will be there in Buffalo, but I think they are going to have to change their plan somewhat, because I thought he had the best game of his career at Gillette Stadium a few weeks ago. The Patriots, you can't get anywhere near that kind of performance in terms of what you're giving up to Josh Allen, or you're going to be going home.
Yeah. And I think, didn't Mac actually wear the scuba suit as well in Buffalo week 14?
It was reported. It looked like a scuba suit. He said it wasn't. But it was similar. And he's getting his thoughts he's getting his suggestions from Brian Hoyer, who obviously spent a lot of time with Tom Brady, and I'm sure learned what to wear in the cold from Brady. So it is sort of this Patriots quarterback's tradition that feels like it's being passed down. It's fashion, and that may be it. Like it may be limited to that. I don't know how much Brian Hoyer is teaching Mac Jones at this point outside of what to wear in the cold. But
it probably was maybe like a 2-piece, but it was definitely a full body. He was something full body anyway. It was trousers and a top. Maybe it wasn't all a onesie piece. Maybe Brady probably wore back then. But looking then at sort of. You mentioned the pass rush and sort of one player that has, maybe defied expectation a little bit, but maybe there wasn't too much expectation because he is a rookie coming into this season is Christian Barmore. He sort of, he is questionable at the moment of this game. He's sort of dealing with an injury. And what is the prognosis for Saturday? Is he looking good for that game? And if not, sort of how big of a miss would he be if he doesn't make it?
Well, first and foremost, I'm shocked he was at practice today. Now, again, we haven't gotten the official report yet. Was he limited? Was he a full participant? I would be even more shocked if he was a full participant, but he's dealing with a knee. I think he's probably going to come down as a limited participant, but even that is surprising to me, because when he left that game in Miami, I mean, he had trouble just standing up. He had to be carted off. He had a hard time getting back to the locker room. So for him to go to that, from that, I should say, to practicing, even if it's in a limited capacity, that to me is surprising. In terms of his play, he has been a game changer for them, even as a rookie. And it really has specifically been the combination of Barmore and Judon together that really has helped this defense end up statistically as one of the best in football, because what they have in the secondary is not what they have had over the course of the last several years. We know Stephon Gilmore's gone, but one of their better corners, Jonathan Jones, has been out the vast majority of the season. J.C. Jackson's had a great year, but starting opposite him is Jalen Mills, who the Patriots signed to really be sort of a jack of all trades, not a full-time number 2 starting outside the numbers kind of corner. And yet he's been okay. And Miles Bryant, who's been their fill-in slot corner off the practice squad, a guy who didn't even make the team out of training camp, he's been okay as well. And I think the reason for that is because they've had this pass rush that has been really, really good all year up until the last few weeks. And Barmore has been the constant. He even had a good game. He was one of the few Patriots defenders who I thought played well in Miami. He's been fine. It's the Judon part of the equation that has sort of evaporated. And that to me has to be a major concern for the Patriots, because again, the formula for them to win, guys, to beat good teams at least, is very easy. Don't turn it over. Play amazingly on defense. You're probably going to get a run-of-the-mill sort of running game no matter the week from the Patriots, so that has been a constant. But it's been when they turn it over and they don't play well defensively, that's when they can lose to anybody, really. And Judon hasn't had a quarterback hit or a sack since that first game in Buffalo, so that was week 13. So it's been a while since he's made any kind of impact plays. And if he doesn't do that, especially if Barmore is limited or he's dealing with this injury in Buffalo, it's going to be really difficult for them, I think, to pull this game out.
Yeah, and finally then, Phil, before we let you go, who you think is going to continue on after Saturday?
I'm going to pick the Bills right now, and it's honestly it's tougher for me to make that choice than maybe it should be. You just look at it, right? Patriots lose 3 of their last 4. They're just performing in such a way that their games are all colored by, these losses have all been colored by self-inflicted wounds, right? Unforced errors, penalties, turnovers, bad starts, like lack of energy, like things you don't expect at all, things that are really easy, should be easy to fix. that they just haven't fixed. And that's why it's still difficult for me to say, man, this really is a game that looks like it's kind of built for them. It's going to be cold. It's going to be outdoors in the Northeast in January. This is kind of what they're made to do. And all the mistakes that they've had that have taken them out of some of these games are very much correctable, or they should be at least, but they haven't corrected them. And so I have to put my foot down at some point and say, I can't get duped again, because if they're able to fix them in the wild card round here, then good for them. We will have seen it. We will have seen them beat a good team on the road in a tough environment, but they just haven't done that this year consistently enough. I mean, you look at their best wins. It's that game in Buffalo, which is a total outlier game in terms of how it played out, that win, and at Los Angeles against the Chargers, and they ended up not being a playoff team. So, if they win this game on Saturday, they will have done something that we really haven't seen from them this year. So that's why I'm going to be picking the Bills. It's going to be a low-scoring game, I think. I think it'll probably be somewhere in the range of like 20-17 Bills. That'll probably be what my final pick will end up being.
Yeah, it kind of seems like a field position type game. Close, both teams kind of trying to minimize mistakes, but I still can't really pick the Patriots in this one. I think I'll probably have to pick the Bills as well.
It's just weird because, right, when we think of Bill Belichick coach teams, you think that they are going to be the team, whether or not they have enough talent to win, that's one thing, but they're not going to give you the game. They're not going to lose the game. They're going to force you to win it. And it's just not who they've been late in this year against good teams. Indianapolis at Indy, Buffalo at home, Miami at the end of the year. It's been the same story. So until they change their ways, it's hard to pick them right now.
Yeah. And look, it cannot be lost that this is still it should be seen as a successful season for Patriots fans and for the team too, especially like it is Mac Jones' first year. It is still a sort of a rebuild. They spent a lot of money in free agency, and it looks like it was good money too. And like, there's a few questionable ones now. I say Jonnu Smith is probably the most disappointing free agent acquisition that they've had so far. He just hasn't been able to, get involved as much as who was Hunter Henry was the other tight end that they acquired as well. But
right.
They're getting performances out of Kendrick Bourne and bringing Kyle Van Noy back as well, and so it's still a great platform to go forward with next year if it is the case that it doesn't work out on Saturday.
No doubt. I mean, big picture, right? Number one, it looks like you found a quarterback, right? So that is a major box checked moving forward. You don't really have to worry about that. Obviously, this offseason, who knows, 2 or 3 off seasons down the road, if it looks like he's Kirk Cousins, maybe you decide at some point at the end of his rookie deal that it's time to start looking for another guy. So that, to me, is the big picture, why you would look at this and say, good season. The reason it is disappointing, I think, for a lot of Patriots fans is because you were in such prime position, going into that game in Indy. You were the number 1 seed in the conference, and you lost 3 of your last 4 to 2 pretty good teams and 1 mediocre team. And you did it in such a way that it indicated to all of us that maybe that 7-game win streak that they had wasn't as great an example of who they truly are as what we saw in the last month of the season. At least those are the questions that are being asked here now. And I think they're fair. Again, I really do, so I would get it if people were disappointed by how it finished. Big picture, yes, you got the quarterback, but you did spend a lot of money. They were really built. They were really built to contend this year, not just be competitive, but to really contend. And it's asking a lot, but that's what they were hoping for. And if they go one and done, it's hard to say they truly contended. That's not real contention to me. They were competitive. They were much better than last year. It was improvement. But I think if they lose this game on Saturday, you'll have a lot of disappointed folks in the greater Boston area and the 6-state New England region. Let's not forget about the rest of those New England states.
Excellent stuff, Phil. It's a pleasure as always to have you on the show. It's always great to speak about the Patriots. You make I'm sure you make our listeners maybe hate them a little bit less, or maybe a little bit more, because if you hate them, if you make them hate a little bit more, you're probably doing your job right.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope there's a little bit of both out there. But I always love talking to you guys. I appreciate you giving me a shout to join you. It's always fun. And this next week will be great. This is a great time of year, regardless of which team you're rooting for. And, whether you've got a team that's still playing or not, And just happen to mention that, given the two guys I'm talking to right now. It is still a lot of fun, right? I mean, it's a lot of football. It's all, essentially prime time. They're great matchups. You can sit down on the couch and just kind of let it you kind of bask in it yourself. Just kind of sink into your couch, don't move for a while, and just watch a bunch of football. It's nice.
Yeah, don't worry, Phil. You'll be joining us on the beach very soon. Very soon.
I'll bring my golf clubs.
Excellent stuff. Again, thanks so much for taking time. We hope you enjoy the games at the weekend for sure, and I'm certain we'll be speaking to you again in the near future.
Perfect. Look forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Jake, as always, thank you to you as well. You were on mute, but I'm sure you're saying thank you, Darren. You are the best.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was on mute. Thanks, Darren. You're not the best.
Well, that is where we're going to wrap up this edition of the show. Remember, you can follow us on our social channels. Twitter and Instagram are both the same, at UnderCenterPod. Go to our YouTube page, Under Center Podcast. That's where you get all of our shows too. And just do the same for the audio side of things, Under Center Podcast. Just search that wherever you get your podcast. You'll find us. You'll get this show. You get all of our shows, because we are back, and it's going to be a huge 2022 that we're really looking forward to. But like I said, this is where I'm going to wrap up the show. Enjoy the games at the weekend, and we will speak to you real soon. So stay safe.